Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Sam with NATP, and it is good to be back. It's been a few minutes. So we are back today because there's some exciting news this morning. If you haven't heard yet, the IRS released long-awaited guidance on creating a written data security plan. They call it a WISP, a written information security plan. So for a little bit of background, in 2020, the IRS released this statement. Anyone who prepares or substantially helps prepare any federal tax return or claim for refund for compensation must have a valid PTIN from the IRS. During the renewal process, you'll be asked to attest to your data security responsibility and whether you are aware of your obligation to have a data security plan in place to provide data and system security protections for all taxpayer information. Now, this isn't the new news. We've known about this for a while. We've discussed this quite a bit. What is new is today, after requests from tax preparers, the IRS, in conjunction with the Security Summit, they unveiled a new sample security plan, so a template that tax preparers can use. I have with me today Brad Messner. Brad, thank you for being here. Brad is a data security expert and has taught a workshop for NATP for a few years now, running about creating an effective data security plan to meet the needs of a wide variety of offices. Brad, in your workshops, a lot of times, most of the time, if not all, everyone comes away with a written plan. So that is pretty exciting and unique. And so before we get started, Brad, thanks again for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. We mentioned that you have lots of experience in this field. Where did it start and what do you do now?
Okay, yeah, and honestly, thank you for having me. Today has been such an exciting day, and I know that sounds so kind of nerdy, but I love it so much. So a little bit of my background, I really have like a split fold background. So I'm a third generation owner of a tax preparation firm. So I've legitimately been doing taxes since I was 16 years old. So I grew up in this world. But then on the other side, I went to college and I focused in computer science and technology. And for several years, I worked in that field and I eventually opened a software company. And after I migrated out of that, I've been a professor at a local university where my courses focus on cybersecurity, computer science, and data. So when I sit down to talk, it really does come from both angles. So I appreciate the strain and stress that this has added, but then I also appreciate the extreme need for something like this in the industry.
Sure. So have you had time, it just released it this morning, but have you had time to read through the IRS's template? And if so, what are some of the highlights?
No, I've had a chance. I was waiting with bated breath for this to come out.
You are a nerd. No, I'm just kidding.
I really am.
I'm just kidding.
No, the Security Summit's been doing some really amazing things. And the fact that it's been 2 years since the expectation of a plan has really been in fold. Now actually getting guidance on what they're looking for in that plan is even more important. So I think one of the key benefits with this is they're really focusing on trying to help the small firms. I think we see a lot of the time these huge plans come out and the 1 or 2 person shops kind of sit there. It's like, I don't even understand it, let alone how to implement it. And their real focus with this plan is almost creating a template where you can walk through step by step and kind of answer those questions. So to me, that's one of the kind of the highlights of the plan. And I think even more so with it, as we work through pieces, they include all of the samples and all the attachments. So if someone is sitting there and unsure what kind of confidentiality agreement to have their employees sign, there's already samples included. So I think that's the key benefit. And one thing that they really do highlight, and I really, really do appreciate the work they put into this, is at the very beginning, and I'm going to read this verbatim just because it's so important, is the WISPs is not intended to replace your own research. It's to create a reliance to serve as a substitute. Because I think that was one of my concerns when I knew this was in the works is, oh gosh, everyone's just going to throw out this boilerplate template and be like, hey, I'm protected, woo. And they've stated from point one, that's not the intent, that this is to provide that guideline, even to the point where a lot of the sections have like a fill in the blank, like the firm has designated employee name to be the public information officer. So it really is, from a template perspective, very thorough, especially for a smaller firm.
That's wonderful. I mean, that seems really helpful and like a really, like you said, a very good starting point. Not necessarily meaning to be all encompassing or every single step that someone should take, but a really great first step that people have been looking for and asking for. Any other, I guess from your perspective, why is this a big deal? Why should people care about this? Obviously, you have an interest in it from, but why, should the average tax preparer care about this?
So, and it's been very interesting because I've been chatting online a lot about this earlier today, and I think we've become like the key holders or the gatekeepers to all of this information. I mean, we as the tax professionals hold every piece of information that would be required to completely destroy someone's identity. And I think sometimes we take for granted that, oh, it's not going to happen to me, or no one really cares about Mr. and Mrs. Johnson who are retiring next year. Nobody cares about their information. So to me, this is the IRS stepping in and saying, we don't want just a checkbox that people check once a year. We actually want to provide guidance and push and say, look, this is something serious. I mean, two to 3 years ago, when they added that checkbox, they authorized that cybersecurity education could be included in CE credits. From a non-tax topic, that's huge. And that's how important the IRS is stating. And now they're following up and saying, we get it. Not a lot of folks have the resources to do this, but we're going to help you out. So this really is a big deal with, and I think every one of us knows the IRS is very strapped with resources. So for them to dedicate the resources to make this type of template available, it shows that they're taking this very serious as well.
So we mentioned earlier that you have been teaching on this for quite a while. How does the IRS's template compare to what you have been teaching?
So it's actually very funny because about 10 minutes before hopping on, I had someone message me and they said, so I was reading through and there's a couple pieces I don't understand, but a lot of them, it's almost like every slide that we had discussed prior fits in here somewhere. And that's what I really, really appreciate about their plan. And this is not to boast us up because NATP has been sponsoring this education for a while. But I think it shows that there really is a standard out there. And this is the IRS supporting that standard. So for anyone that has taken one of NATP's courses in the past, any of the policy you would have come up with from that course is very close to what they are saying. And even if there's a piece here or a piece there, that goes even further down the path of why we've been even doing these update courses. So like 2 weeks ago at Taxposium, we didn't do a workshop. The workshop is every September. What we did at Taxposium was talk about key things we needed to be aware of to include. So we talked about you might have to update this plan to include virtual. And that was one area that they didn't do a ton of work on in this plan, but where a virtual firm might have to make some adjustments. So the actual template itself is very, very close to the template that we have been using. And I actually had someone reach out as well this morning. It's been a very busy morning. And they said that it's actually very similar to one they got from their insurance as well. So I think this is the IRS confirming that what's been happening in the industry is kind of coming together to hit all the key points.
That's got to be a big relief for you, but also for, anyone who has done any work in this
It
field.
adds validation, yes.
Yes, it's a good feeling. So then would it be accurate? Could you take this step, then the next step, to say, as long as someone follows this plan, will they be in compliance or, considered protected from any fallout?
So I think that's a very double-sided question, because, and if anyone has sat through any of my discussions or just sees me rattling on online half the time, there never really is in my opinion, a full compliance or a full protection. And that to me is where there is some fear when a template comes out, is we don't want people to sit there and think, oh, I followed the IRS's template, I'm safe. The bad guys are out there working much harder than we are trying to gain access to a lot of these systems. So we really do need to be on the spot to keep things proactive. So just having a plan is never going to be enough. We need to be implementing and managing that plan. And even because again, we'll be honest, from a resource perspective, it took 2 years to come up with this plan. This is something that needs continual and ongoing review. So we can't really wait on version 2 to update. This is something that now becomes a living document inside of each firm, and we focus on. So it really is, it's not really if I do this, I'm going to be protected. And this is going to sound terrible, but if you don't do this, you're definitely not going to be protected, and you can kiss your insurance goodbye. Because pretty much every insurance is going to require this plan, and they will probably request to see it as well. So I think it's the first step, with the second step then being ensuring that you're following it.
Okay. So that kind of leads me to my next question. We have this template. This has been released. This is great. Moving forward, though, what are some steps preparers can take to ensure that they're compliant with the requirement to have a security plan in place?
So, that's a perfect lead question there. So, the key thing is that it's not really this hard document that stays. It's as everything evolves and changes. I mean, the biggest fear I saw when a lot of people were migrating virtual 2 years ago was no one was talking about, well, how do we care about security compliance? How do we ensure that we're still staying safe now that I've pushed all of my employees home? Or even I'm busy because the tax codes changed 6 times this year. I'm going to hire a contractor from Idaho. How do I adjust for that? So we really do need to stay proactive. This should almost be something in our firm. We do a lot of monthly reviews. So we just kind of sit down every month and say, what worked this month, what do we need to adjust? This would be something that we just add into that to make sure that we're keeping things up to date. And second to that, it would definitely be a good time to start trying to find someone that you can work with. If you look at this document and your eyes just spin back and you start super sweating because you're nervous about it. If you don't have the skill set or understanding for this, the next real step is finding someone that you can partner with that will help you implement and manage it.
And that's a good point too. Tax preparers are not expected to be IT wizards and, know all of these things, but it is important to know the requirements. And so to know where to look for help is a really important step as well. Excuse my dog. Joys of working from home, speaking of that. And so, Brad, we mentioned this, I think, earlier. You are teaching an online workshop for NATP later this year, actually next month, I believe. Can you talk a little bit about that and why, it might be beneficial for someone to attend?
And I haven't told any TP this yet, but they're going to be getting some updates to my PowerPoints.
Wonderful. We're ready and we welcome it. The best information is what we want.
But the reason being is, with this coming out, we want to try to match with the IRS templates as close as we can, because we want to support as professionals the industry standards. And part of the course is now going to be adjusted to understand the templates. but more so how we can implement what they mean and what pieces work very heavily versus which pieces don't. For example, a conversation happened earlier today where someone said one of the comments in the template is to turn off 24/7 remote access. And someone was like, oh my gosh, like, how do I operate? And I said, well, each firm is different. What they're really trying to do is minimize the windows of possible exposure. So if you have, say, a part-time employee or an employee who only works certain hours, then limit those down. Start putting the limits in place, because that's really, and that's what we're going to be focusing on during a lot of these workshops, is taking these templates and making them actual actionable plans that we can use moving forward. In the past, we've been working on a template because it was brand new. Now that we have a template that we can tweak and modify, it's really going to start focusing and shifting on, let's get the template on point for your operation, but more so, how can we actually then make it usable and actionable?
So this workshop sounds like it's fairly interactive, in that if someone has questions, they could come with those questions, and perhaps even get some expertise from you. Does that sound right?
No, absolutely. It's 2 different days and they're 4 hours each, which I know sounds like a lot, but you do leave and it's very interactive. So they're not pre-recorded. So if someone pops a question in, we'll answer it. The real idea when we started doing this as a workshop was, if one person has a question, there's a good chance that someone else is going to have that question too. So we want to walk through and talk through. So it's very interactive. So any feedback we get during the session, we actually apply during that session. And even last year, we were very proactive in providing feedback after the session for any questions that people came up. So a lot of people stuck around afterwards and asked questions, and we kept a log and we provided those back to all their participants, so that no one missed out from any of the interaction, even between the 2 sessions.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
Yeah, it was actually, it's a really, really good opportunity.
What else should we know about this, Brad? Any other, points that you want to make? Any other final parting words?
So again, people sometimes say that I'm the scare tactic king, but I've seen the ugly side, and that's what scares me. As good as this is today, and trust me, I am absolutely loving this, it also brings forward now that you can't claim ignorance anymore. Ignorance is no longer bliss. This is the IRS bringing forward and saying, look, this is serious. You have to do this. So 2 years from now, if there's a problem, someone can't go to the IRS and say, I didn't know, or I thought my 1.5-page document was sufficient. They've now provided and set a standard. So we now have that bare minimum standard. To me, this will become an annual due diligence requirement. So I think that's the key thing about this, is it's not just we have a template, it's there if we want it. It's setting a standard for the IRS. And I believe we will start seeing insurance companies and so forth pull in a lot of the details and aspects from this.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for all the great information today, Brad. It's always fun to get your take on things that are happening, and you are so passionate, so it makes it interesting.
I get a little excited.
It brings everyone in to why this is important. So as always, it's been wonderful talking with you, Brad. Thank you, everyone who has joined us this afternoon.
Yes, thank you.
As a reminder, NATP is hosting a workshop that Brad is teaching, and you can learn how to create an effective data security plan. It is interactive, like we mentioned, so come with your questions, come with your concerns, comments. Brad is here for it. So you can go to natptax.com/online to register for that. Otherwise, Brad, thank you again.
Thank you.
And hopefully we will see you again soon.
Sounds good. We'll see you in a month, if nothing else.
True. Very true. Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks.
Perfect.